Okay, it might be hard to see how this is an objection. Oh my God, utilitarianism is based on increasing pleasure and reducing pain, so therefore it must be wrong. It's hedonism, which hedonism means pleasure worship. And part of this is in the early 19th century, it was kind of thought to be immoral to have a good time. You know the old definition of a Puritan? A Puritan is someone who is very worried that someone, somewhere, is having a good time. Right? It was considered frivolous, even morally wrong, to enjoy yourself. You should be putting in your time to being miserable, wearing dull clothes and following the dictates of somebody's imaginary friend. And so, but the answer to that is, well, why not? What's wrong with pleasure? Pleasure is a good thing. Everybody really wants pleasure. Even the people who tell you that you shouldn't have your pleasure are oft having their pleasures of their own. So it's kind of a weird objection, right? And so there's more to life than pleasure. There's knowledge. There's virtue. Being a good person. Those are important too. Well, the utilitarian answer, frankly, is that why is knowledge important? Right? I personally know a lot about World War II and tanks and things, and I enjoy firearms knowledge. But is it a good thing? Am I morally better than someone who doesn't know about Operation Bacatron? How would me knowing stuff be better than me not knowing stuff? What's good about it? Well, there is a kind of knowledge that is definitely good, science and medical knowledge, because they allow us to improve human life. And another thing about science is I really love reading about science, hearing about science. A lot of the stuff in science is just really, really, really cool. That's a pleasure. And so the value that science has, part of the value that science has, is that it gives us the pleasure of understanding the world. And so that's a good thing. Knowing stuff that doesn't help anything at all, knowing, like soccer statistics from 1930, I don't see there's anything morally laudable in that or anything morally wrong with not knowing it. Also, remember, utilitarianism is egalitarian, is thinking about others. We consider everybody's pleasure, not just our own. Hedonism, if I'm a hedonist, I'm like, fun for me, but I don't care about anyone else. And there's pleasures of the higher faculties. There's a little finessing that goes in there, but it's pretty good. You think about it this way, that there are certain things that you really enjoyed when you were really young, and you look at it now and like, that's really simplistic. And there's certain things you enjoy when you're naive, or you're not really, you don't really have much exposure to something, and then later on you get more and more into the whatever it is, and you start having a higher and higher taste. You might start off listening to silly pop music, and then graduate to opera or something, or not. I mean, you figure out what you like. So you've got to have, Jeremy Bentham said, the amount of pleasure being equal, pushpin, which is a sort of pub game, is like Skittles, I think, is as important as poetry. Just because something's valued by people who consider themselves intellectuals doesn't mean it's necessarily better. And we can talk about spiritual values, we can talk about spiritual pleasures and intellectual pleasures and cultural pleasures, aesthetic pleasures, and all of that stuff's great. And once you learn to understand it, you're like, yeah, that's really good stuff. But it's still always pleasure. So to say that it's a problem that utilitarianism is equal to hedonism, well, first, it's not hedonism straight, because it doesn't say everybody seek their own pleasure. It's everybody look out for the pleasure and pain of everyone else. Makes it a moral theory. And second, nothing wrong with having a good time. There is absolutely nothing wrong with having a good time.